So guys, are you considering doing a stage 2 to your Harley Davidson touring motorcycle? Guys, my name is Rick and this is the HDVIBE channel. Spend a little bit of time with me today and I'm going to explore all the ins and outs of a stage 2 upgrade. We're going to cover what is really a stage 2 upgrade, what are the components and the cost of doing a stage 2 upgrade, what are some of the horsepower and torque numbers you can expect from a Screamin Eagle stage 2 upgrade, and finally we'll answer the question, and you can answer the question after getting all this information: is the juice worth the squeeze? And we'll get into all that right after this. So that's right guys, today we're going to be talking about a stage 2 upgrade on your Harley Davidson touring motorcycle. As you may recall from a prior video, I did a stage 2 upgrade on the Road Glide Special probably about 45 to 60 days ago, and I've put well over 1,000 miles on that stage 2 upgrade. And what I want to do today is share with you a little bit more information about really what is a stage 2 upgrade, what are the components and the cost of actually doing a stage 2 upgrade, what kind of horsepower and torque numbers can you expect when you do a Screamin Eagle stage 2 upgrade, and finally answer the question and let you guys answer the question: is the juice worth the squeeze? Is the cost justified for what you get for a stage 2 upgrade? So a stage 2 upgrade really involves moving from the next level of stage 1, which stage 1 really is putting slip-ons on your motorcycle and putting a tune on it so that you get a better fuel to air mixture ratio. And with those slip-ons, hopefully they're a little freer breathing than what the stock Harley Davidson slip-ons would be. You get more air coming out the back, and obviously you have to have a high flow breather, whether that be a Screamin Eagle or on a lot of the special models now, it is a ventilator, so essentially it is a high flow breather. But the main component when you go to a stage 2 is the cam, and cams are measured in terms of lift. So on the special models, and I believe the 107s and the 114 Harley Davidson touring engines, they come with a 335 lift. So what does that mean? What does lift mean? So a cam has lobes on it, it has a main circle. So that lift is the difference between the base circle measurement, which is in inches, to the top of that lobe. So 0.335 inches would be the lift on a stock cam on these 114 and 107s. When you move up to a stage 2, you're increasing that lift. So you're increasing the length of that lobe, which essentially lets more fuel and air get into that engine, which then gives you more torque and horsepower depending on how that lobe is shaped and the duration of how long that piston stays up and everything is moving and sucking more air in. If you think about it, an engine is really just a big pump. It's pumping air and fuel through it to get power and torque out of it. So a 447 cam is 0.447 inches of lift on the top of that lobe of that cam. So the 447 cam is what I put in this in the Road Glide Special. That is considered a torque cam. You can go with aftermarket cams. In this case, I went with Harley Davidson cam because I wanted to stay within warranty, because I do, as you probably know, I do have the ESP on the Road Glide Special. Then the other part of that is you have to retune the engine from going from a stage 1 to a stage 2, because obviously there's more fuel and air going to be coming into that engine. So you need to get that mixture just right to maximize the performance that you can get out of it. Now, will the engine run if you just put the cam in it? Sure, it'll run, but it'll run very sporadically. It won't be very efficient, it won't be fuel efficient, and it may run a little bit rough. So the tune is critical. And in my case, again, I use the Screamin Eagle base tune. I'm using Screamin Eagle tuners. I've so far just used the base map. At some point I may do a smart tune or auto tune session on that, but if you want to learn more about the new tuner that Harley Davidson came out, I'll pop a card right up here to a video that I recently put out on the Street Glide ST and showing you how to use the new Bluetooth enabled Harley Davidson Screamin Eagle Pro Street tuner. Now, for the second part of this, I want to get into a little bit of the cost, because Costs can be all over the place. I've actually seen a recent video where a Stage 2 at an independent shop cost, by the time they got done with everything, the tuner, the whole works, it was close to like $5,000. So I will tell you, I spent nowhere near that and putting Harley Davidson Screamin Eagle components into the Road Glide Special. So let me just go through and break down the components for you. So I'll have this listed down in the description as well, all the part numbers and the prices and links to these if you're curious and want to look at them, but I'm going to run through them real quick here. So the first item you have to go with is obviously the cam itself. So I went with the torque cam. There is a kit, it's called the Screamin Eagle Stage 2 Torque Kit. So that kit includes the 447 cam that I spoke about earlier, plus adjustable push rods that you replace the stock push rods, because essentially they cut them out because they don't have to take the top end off. You put adjustable ones in and they adjust it to the proper length for the cam. The other thing that I put in are Screamin Eagle high capacity tappets. These just allow for better movement, and that's going to be down on the lower end. It's going to be going right against that new cam, and these allow for better longevity and kind of more bulletproofing. Now, this is again something that you probably don't necessarily have to do, but in most cases this is generally always recommended. And let me go back to the kit itself is about $510. These tappets, again, Screamin Eagle, about $275. So the next thing that you'll want to replace is actually the cam bearing. So when they do this, they pull out the old bearing, they put in the new cam bearing, and this has a lot more rollers. It's a lot more efficient and a lot cleaner movement of the cam within the engine. And that only runs about $53. And again, this is a Screamin Eagle. It's called the Screamin Eagle Lefty Bearing. And then to do all that, at least at my dealership, the stock charge to do a Stage 2 upgrade is 6 hours. So what that you get for that labor is they have to pull off, I believe, the right side floorboard. They have to pull off your exhaust system. They open up the cam chest. They pull everything out. They take the plate, the oil pump off. Then they pull out the old cam, they pull out the old bearing, and then they begin replacing that as well as the tensioner that's on that chain-driven cam. So that's what 6 hours gets you. So what I did, and I will call this optional, if you have a 2020 and newer, it's really not necessary, but if you really want to bulletproof the engine, you'll go with the Screamin Eagle Pro High Volume Oil Pump and Cam Support Plate. So basically a new cam plate and high capacity oil pump, and that runs $775. And in the case of my dealership, they didn't charge anything extra for that, because essentially they would have been putting the old one in. They took the old one off, so no additional labor. Again, 6 hours labor for all that. And again, at my dealership anyway, 6 hours labor is about $900. So the grand total, if you did all of this and you already have your Screamin Eagle tuner from your Stage 1, you get about $2,500 and call it $13. So not exorbitant. And actually, if you don't do the optional cam plate and oil pump, you're at $1,738. So not terrible. Plus you have taxes and probably some other shop fees to go along with that. So it's a pretty quote unquote reasonable engine upgrade that I think you get a lot of bang for the buck. So now let's talk horsepower and torque, and the numbers I'm going to be talking about is on a Milwaukee 8-114. So from a stock perspective, your torque peaks out at about 3,000 RPMs, and it's about 110 foot-pounds of torque that you get. And that curve really starts at 2,500 RPMs, and then it starts to dive off at about 3,500. And at about 4,500 RPMs, you're at about 100 foot-pounds of torque. So not terrible, certainly better than a 107 and certainly better than the 103 twin cams or even probably the 110 twin cams. So in terms of stock horsepower, your max horsepower is probably right teetering just slightly under 90 horsepower. And again, this is Harley Davidson numbers based upon the dynos that they have on stock engines. So again, that horsepower curve really starts coming on at 2,500. It's pretty much a nice steep climb, and then it begins to level off between that 4,500 and 5,500, and it maxes out at about 5,500. So now compare that to doing a torque cam. So a stage 2 torque cam, the 447 cam that I spoke about earlier, your peak torque is about, say, 118 foot-pounds, and that's at right around 3,500. And really your range is, you're about 108 at 2,500 RPMs of torque, and you're still staying above 110 all the way out to probably 46, 4,700. So a nice curve, but then it begins to dive off. And then when you get up into those higher RPMs at, say, about 6,200, you're just slightly under 80 foot-pounds of torque, but then your horsepower is sort of coming on at that point too. So now from a horsepower perspective, again with the torque cam in there, your horsepower is going to be peaking at about just around 100 horsepower at about 5,000 RPMs. Again, it's a pretty steep, steady climb. It begins to peak at right at 5,000, and then it begins to sort of fall off just after 5,000. But certainly, you know, at the low end, you're at 90. At 2,500 RPMs, you're at about 50 some odd horsepower, which is not unusual. So that's kind of the number. So again, you're peaking out with the stage 2, 3,500, your torque is probably about 118 foot-pounds, and your horsepower is peaking out at about 5,000, and it's just under or close to 100 horsepower on the stage 2. So if you have a 2020 and newer bike, you know, you're looking at maybe 1,700. You know, like my dealership will run a special on Black Friday. If you buy the parts, you get free labor. So you're going to save about $900, and you're just going to be paying for parts. So then it becomes very reasonable. So my suggestion would be, look for these types of specials that your dealership might run. Ask your service advisor, if you've built a relationship with them, ask them if they have any specials or if they can do anything on labor or discounts on parts or whatever the case may be. And you might be able to get this for even less than what I have here that I've listed off. So the question is the juice worth the squeeze? So from my perspective, what I have seen with the 114, power delivery is much smoother than on the 335 cam, the stock cam. When I get up into the higher gear, say 5th gear or 6th gear, I find that I don't have to downshift to pass. You just roll on the throttle and the bike will take off. Versus when I was running stock cam, I would find myself, especially if I was up in 6th gear, I may drop down into 5th and then go if I'm going to go pass. And then when you're in the lower gears, I would say really is 2nd and 3rd, making that shift from 2nd to 3rd or 3rd to 4th. If you really get on the throttle, the front end of that bike will kind of rise up a little bit. So it has plenty of pull, and you feel that pull all the way through your power band. Again, from that 2,500 all the way up to 42 or so 100 RPMs, you're feeling that constant pull as you're going through that gear range. And you know, it's just a really comforting feeling. I would say, and I said this in the other video, when it comes to the 114 with this cam, the 447 cam, as compared to the two bikes I have at stage 1 with 117 engines, the 114 with this cam runs pretty dang hot, and I would say it'd be interesting to see, and I've seen some videos where a 114 versus a 117, 114 stage 2 versus a 117 stage 1 have run together, and they'll pretty much run together. And you know, you certainly have good power. It's certainly a great increase. So to me, the juice is worth the squeeze. It's worth that money that I spent. I feel like I've gotten value for that. You know, I haven't had the bike dynoed, but my butt dyno tells me it's worth it. Guys, if you like this type of content, please give this a thumbs up. Also, consider sharing this with your friends, others that might be like-minded, want to learn more about Harley Davidson touring motorcycles or a Stage 2 upgrade and determine, should I do it, should I not do it? Please share it with those people. Also, if you've been around the channel and you haven't subscribed or you're new to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel to get this out to more and more like-minded individuals. Also, when you do subscribe, please leave a comment down below saying I subscribe so I can personally reach out and thank you for supporting the channel. Also, leave some comments down below. What do you think about a Stage 2? Is it worth it? Is it not worth it? I know there's a lot of different options in terms of the cams. You could go non-Screamin Eagle and you can get a heck of a lot more power out of these 114, 107, or even 117 motors with other cams and non-EPA tunes. I know that, but in this case, what I'm talking about is an EPA compliant tuned bike that still gets very good performance. And with that, guys, I want to leave you with this thought. Life is short. Get out and ride the bike. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye now.